Hey there. Welcome to episode 334 of Mike's Collection. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that we're going to be talking about today is the best action figures of the third quarter of 2024. So, as I sit down to film this, it is October 1st, 2024, which means we have just started the fourth quarter. Now, I've been doing this YouTube channel for a long time, and I review action figures. And at the end of every year, I do a video with my best action figures of the year. Now, what I had done for a few years prior to this is I would take all the toys I bought that year and I would put them on my desk and I would do an elimination down to like my top 20. That got to be pretty overwhelming because I had way too many toys to fit on my desk. Plus, I had to make a huge mess because I had to haul out every toy from every collection. And yeah, it just got to be a lot. So what I've been doing for the past 2 years is I do a best of every quarter. And the figures, so I have every figure that I bought in quarter three on my desk over here behind me. And so I am going to do an elimination of every action figure I bought this quarter. And I'm going to get myself down to, I don't know, my top 10 or 15 is usually what I get down to, about 15 figures or so. And then if I get down to those 15, those guys will graduate to the next video. So the next time I do one of these, it'll be the end of December, and I'll be sitting down to do my best of quarter four. And so those figures will go up against the best figures from quarter three, quarter two, and quarter one, and we'll get down to my best of the year. So, yeah, that's what we're going to do. You're going to just go through the process with me in real time. I pulled out all the figures from this quarter. I haven't really given it any thought about who's going to get eliminated or who's not. But if you've seen me do this before, you kind of know how it works. So yeah, why don't we flip the camera around here and we're going to start eliminating action figures and get to our best of quarter three of 2024. One last little bit of business before we get on to the eliminations is these are the figures that I did technically buy this quarter, but they do not qualify for this list because they were not released this year. The only rules I have for figures to qualify for my best of the year list is they have to have been released this year. So even if I got an amazing figure, but it came out in 2023 or 2021, that doesn't count. And the other rule is, of course, I have had to acquire it. There are some amazing figures that are going to come out this year that I either just didn't want or can't afford or whatever. So yeah, these are not the absolute best figures of the year. These are just the best figures that I got this year. So anyway, for these ones here that you can see I picked up, none of these figures would have qualified for the best of the year. If they were so great, I would have bought them when they first came out. The reason that I got them after the fact is either I found them on deep discount. In the case of a lot of these Star Wars figures, they were gifted to me by my cousin just a couple of weeks ago because he was trying to clear out his collection. And yeah, most of these Marvel Legends are things that I get on discount from GameStop. They were either released, last year or the year before. These 3 Eternal figures, for example, all came out in 2021 when that movie came out. So yeah, I just wanted to show you these guys just so I'm being complete with all the figures that I purchased this quarter. But now we can get on to the contenders. So here we go. These are all of the figures in contention this quarter. And every quarter, I am trying to get down to a reasonable number, but it never seems to work out. I would guess that there are 80-some figures here, which continues my streak of an average of pretty much an action figure a day, which is ridiculous, and my wife will leave me if I keep buying them at this pace. But at least for now, that's still where I'm at. So about 80-some figures to go through here, and we're going to try and get down to, just like I said, my top 15. The fewer I can get to, the better, because that'll just make my job at the end of the year that much easier. So as you can see, I start with most of my little small figures up front, and the reason for that is, for one, it's easier for me to photograph them, and you can see everything that's here, but also because these are usually the first guys to go. I love these little reaction figures from Super 7, but just the nature of them, they're very simple in their designs. They have very limited articulation. So it's highly unlikely that very many of these are going to advance to my best of the year. So why don't we start with some of these reaction figures. You can see I have a lot of Godzilla reaction figures here, including these glow-in-the-dark versions of, we got Megalon and Baragon. Now, I think these glow-in-the-dark figures are really cool, but I have both these figures already in their standard colors, and I prefer the standard colors, and even they didn't get to advance, so the glow-in-the-dark versions are not going to either. Same thing with Gigan here. He's going to go. Now, this Godzilla, this is just another kind of standard Godzilla. They make these figures for pretty much every single movie. I can't remember which movie this is off the top of my head, but it's the version where he has some very prominent eyebrows, which makes him different than most of the other Godzillas in my collection, but it doesn't make him awesome. So yeah, he is not my best of the year, so he's going to go. Here's a glow-in-the-dark Anguirus. Again, a fun figure with those little gold highlights. But I prefer the standard color version, so he's going to go. Now this gold Godzilla, this is based on the Shogun Godzilla design, a toy from like the 70s. I really love the design of this figure. I have several Shogun Godzillas in various colors. In fact, if I just whip over here for a second, you can see some of them there that I bought in previous years. So it's really fun to collect the different colors of these guys. But this guy really doesn't bring a whole lot new to the table. So he's going to have to go. And then we've got Hedorah, or Hedorah over here. Again, really fun figure. He's one of my favorite monsters, and these are pretty fun colors. But he's going to go as well. We have, let me see, King Caesar. So this is another Godzilla villain. Fun figure. I just recently got him, but he's going to go. Now, here's a couple of reaction figures. I'm actually not sure if these guys would qualify for this video. I don't know if they came out this year or last year. I was kind of late to the party on these figures. These are from the movie Return of the Living Dead. And I had never seen that movie before until very recently this year. And as soon as I saw it, I loved it. And I knew these figures existed, so I went and ordered them. So this is Trash and Tarman. They're cool figures, but they're reaction figures. They wouldn't make it to my best of the year list. And as I said, I'm not sure they qualify because they might be a little bit older anyway. So that brings me down to my final reaction figure here. And this guy is probably going to get eliminated too, but I really like it. This guy is something different. It is a whole new mold. So it's not just a remake of the many other Godzillas I have. I like that he comes with this display base with the buildings. He actually comes off of that, so you don't have to display him on that. And the reason he's kind of this really flat green is because he's based on the old Aurora model kit that you would buy back in like the, I guess the 70s probably. And it would come in this flat green, and then you're supposed to paint it to make it look nice. So this is an action figure of an old model kit, which is very cool. I like it a lot. So I'm not going to get rid of him just yet, but I think his chances of advancing are pretty slim. Next up, we've got some DC Superpowers figures from McFarlane Toys, so such as Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman. These guys came in a 3-pack. I think it was a convention exclusive. I have all of these figures already in their standard colors, but this was a repaint. Batman, you know, he's fine, but he's not going to make it. Wonder Woman as well. I don't think this is necessarily the best Superpowers figure. I love this Superman figure. Every time he pops up, I have a bit of a soft spot for him. I think this is my 5th or maybe even 6th time buying this figure. But this is actually not one of my favorite color schemes for him. I prefer the standard blue one. I like my gold one. I like my white one. So yeah, this black one just doesn't scream Superman to me. So he's going to go. Here's Guy Gardner, one of the Green Lanterns. This is a really great figure. These Superpowers figures are very simple in design, but that's what's charming about them. You know, they're built like the Superpower figures of the 80s, which I'm a big fan of. But Guy Gardner, he's not going to cut it, I'm afraid. So what have we got? That's a Booster Gold, which is, he's a fun character. I've never had an action figure of him before. Metamorpho, I'd say he's an even funner character, and I've never had an action figure of him before. You can see he's the elemental man. He's made up of all these different elements. He's bright, he's colorful, he's very cool. And hiding behind Booster is Black Manta, who is a character I've always thought has a really cool design. It's pretty simple, but great. Anyway, I like all these figures a lot, but there's just too much competition from these bigger, more detailed, more articulated figures. So all of these superpowers are going to have to go, unfortunately. Now you'll see I've got this weird looking Leonardo right up front. This figure is based on the original sketches when Eastman and Laird first designed the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I have a lot of Ninja Turtles in my collection that are based on like the live action movies or based on the cartoons. And, you know, I just thought this was such an original look. I don't think it's the coolest version of Ninja Turtles by a long shot, but it's just really neat. I like the idea of it being based on the original sketch. I don't know if he's going to make my best of the year. It's unique, it's fun, but anyway, he can stick around for a minute. But like Godzilla here, he's probably not long for this world. I've got some Transformers. First, I'm going to talk about this little Transformer. He probably shouldn't even be in this video. He's really more of an accessory than anything else. I think his name is Minotauro. He's like a little bull-headed guy, and he turns into an axe. He actually just came as an accessory with a couple of these other figures here. Yeah, so I definitely didn't buy the set looking to get this guy, but he is technically a character, so I thought I should take him into consideration, but yeah, he's gone. All right, so Gears, he's a little Transformer here. I love this dude. He's one of my all-time favorite Transformers, so he's going to stick around for a little while. This here is a repaint of the same toy. This character is named Smallfoot. I don't care as much about this character, and I definitely don't need to keep this mold around twice. But besides that, like, I just really don't like this face design. I think that pink, that yellow on pink on red, it's just like, it's a terrible color choice. So yeah, I really don't like this figure. So she's gonna go. She came in a 2-pack with, or a 3-pack with this guy. So this guy's name is Treads, and he is a green repaint of the character Warpath. It's a fine little figure, but I would prefer a Warpath over a Treads. This character doesn't do a whole lot for me in the figures, you know, nothing revolutionary. So he's going to go. Now, the other figure in the set was this guy that they call Pathfinder, but he really is just a repaint of Cosmos, who is the Transformer. He's usually green, and he transforms into a UFO. This guy's blue. He also transforms into a UFO. I really like this figure of Cosmos. Like, it's a really nice mold. But they released this figure as Cosmos at first in green, and I missed out on him because he was really hard to track down. So I was happy to get this blue repaint as Pathfinder. But knowing that it's not Cosmos, it just kind of knocks him down a couple of pegs. So I think I'm probably going to eliminate him too. It's a nice figure, but yeah, Cosmos would have stood a better chance. And then we've got these guys. I was really excited about these guys. These are a couple of Insecticons. This is Barrage, and this is Chop Shop. And these are characters that have been around since the 80s, and they have never really been redone in a new action figure form since then. There was one little version of Chop Shop in the past, but Barrage has not had a new action figure since like 1985 when the original one came out. So, very happy to get these characters, but the figures themselves are just retools of other toys we already got. Plus, these characters, they were never really featured in the cartoons or the comic books very much, so I don't have a whole lot of an attachment to the actual characters. I was glad to get them, but yeah, they're not going to advance for my best of the year. And I just noticed Black Manta is still hanging around here. I thought we eliminated him, but yeah, so he's going to go. Sorry, Black Manta. So yeah, we've got some Masters of the Universe, we've got Marvel Legends, we've got G.I. Joe Classified. Lots of stuff to consider here yet. But yeah, we're making pretty good progress here. You can see we've thinned out the whole front bit of my desk here. So Leo, Godzilla, and Gears. These are the early advanced picks, so they're going to live a little while longer while we eliminate some of these other figures. And I almost forgot to mention, this here is Brainiac. He is another DC Superpowers figures from McFarlane Toys. And he came packaged with this vehicle. This is his little Brainiac skull ship, which is awesome. When you move it around, the little tentacles move. And I actually, in the last quarter, the second quarter of the year, I got this skull ship in gray, and I thought it was really cool. But vehicles on their own don't really qualify for my best action figure of the year list. However, I will take them into consideration if they come packaged with an action figure. So this here is the deluxe skull ship that came with Brainiac. And I think it's really cool. The purple looks really nice, that translucent kind of neon green. All very, very cool. The only problem is it came with this version of Brainiac, who I don't really know this look very well. He had it in, like, I think the 90s. I really prefer the other Brainiac, which was his kind of goofier first appearance. Yeah, this whole curly mustache and beard look, just, it's not a version of Brainiac I'm really familiar with or that I really like. So if the other Brainiac figure had come with this version of the ship, it would probably advance through this video. But because of this figure, unfortunately, this really cool skull ship is going to have to get eliminated as well. So up front here, we have a couple of Masters of the Universe figures from Mattel's cartoon collection. So these figures are kind of a subset of the Origins line, which I think there are 1 or 2 Origins figures tucked away in the back there. Like I can see Vipor. So we're going to talk about some Origins figures shortly. But yeah, these guys here are based on the cartoon models from the 80s. I like both these guys. Merman is one of my all-time favorite characters from anything ever. I love Merman. And in this particular video, I have this Merman and this Merman up for consideration. And as much as I love Merman, that does not mean he's a shoo-in, because I have so many other great versions of Merman already that getting a lesser version of a character, you know, it's hard to get that excited about it when I already have so many cool versions. And when I did my review video of this figure, I talked about how Super 7 had previously done a version of Merman based on the cartoon that was better than this one. So I think I'm going to have to eliminate Merman. It pains me to do that because I do love him so much. And this figure has grown on me over time. It's not a bad figure by any means. But, yeah. Sorry, buddy. And then Stratos. I've always liked Stratos as well, but nowhere near as much as Merman. However, I think this is possibly the best Stratos that has ever been produced. I just really like everything about the design. I particularly love that he's got red boots on. Normally he's got no boots, and it's always a little weird that this guy that's kind of half monkey and half bird has these weird little gray sock feet, like his legs just turn into little rounded toes. So I really like that he's got boots this time. It really elevates the figure, and I like this guy a lot. So because this is the best Stratos ever released, that definitely gives him a leg up over Merman, who is just a Merman, one of several good Mermen. So yeah, Stratos, we'll let him hang out for a little while longer. Over here, I'm tempted to call this figure Gorgo, but it's not really. Gorgo is from an old monster movie, and but the movie actually, Gorgo is this little guy. Gorgo is the baby, and the whole movie focuses around Gorgo, and he gets kidnapped, and at the end of the movie, his mother shows up and rescues him and destroys the city. So this character's name is actually, I think, Agra, the mother. But the box, the packaging, kind of build it as a Gorgo figure because it's based on the movie Gorgo. So I'll probably refer to Agra as Gorgo, but you know, that's a little bit of a cheat. Anyway, this figure is not perfect. It's a little clunky. Some of the articulation is a little weird, but I give it a lot of credit for being such an obscure character. Gorgo is not a figure I ever anticipated getting in my collection. And it's made by a small little company, Titanic Creations. This is really its first attempt at doing articulated action figures, and I think it did a very good job. for being such a small little startup of like a one-man show. So I think Agra is going to stick around for a little while, and Gorgo, since he came packaged with her, he's going to stick around with her. Okay, so we're going to tuck away Stratos and Gorgo over here for a little while. And now I guess we should start looking at some of the G.I. Joe classified figures. There are quite a few of them in here. And this is going to be tough because G.I. Joe Classified is probably my favorite line to collect right now. I love G.I. Joe. I love all of these characters. So yeah, it's really tough to let any G.I. Joe go. However, some of the Joes that are easier to let go are figures that we've already got in the past. So for example, this Stalker here, this is the Retro Card Stalker. He just came out very recently. I've only had him for about 2 weeks. I like him a lot. It is an improvement over the previous Stalker figure that we got a year or two ago, but it is very much the same. Like it shares a lot of the same parts, a lot of the same sculpting, same accessories. You know, they have changed up some things. The biggest thing being the paint job. This green camo is much closer to the original 1982 figure, which I like. But since I already have a Stalker, this guy's, you know, he just doesn't feel like he's bringing as much new to the table. So this Stalker I feel pretty comfortable getting rid of. And as awesome as this retro-carded Cobra Commander is, he kind of falls into the same boat. I already have a Cobra Commander that looks a lot like this, and I have 3 or 4 other Cobra Commanders beside. The thing that this guy really brings to the table that the other guys haven't is the chrome, like vac metal reflective helmet. That always is a plus on any Cobra Commander. So that is very, very cool. And yeah, this guy is an awesome figure. But I think I'm going to have to let him go. But there is still a Cobra Commander that's on the desk here who's going to live on to fight another day. So Retro Cobra Commander, I'm sorry, but as cool as you are, you got to go. And now I've got a couple of Tiger Force repaints of a couple other figures that I already have. So this is Tiger Force Tripwire, who I previously had. He had like an all green outfit, but now he's got these like tiger stripes on him. Same as Roadblock. I have this figure already. He had a camo tank top and plain brown pants. Now he's got like tiger striped pants, and he's got just a plain green tank top. You can see he's got a tiger striped helmet, and it's hard to tell, but he's got some paint, like some tiger paint across his face there. Anyway, this is the best Roadblock figure that they've produced. They've made a bunch of them. And so not necessarily this figure, but I mean the other version of this one in the other colors. This one's good too. I don't really like the makeup on the face. So this figure has basically already been considered in a previous year. So this guy's going to go. Now, Tripwire is not as easy to let go because I actually think the Tiger Force colors are an improvement. And I really like Tripwire as a character. I really loved the Tiger Force Tripwire that I had as a kid. He's got his work cut out for him, but I think I'm going to let him stick around for a little while. This guy, I can't even remember what they call him. He's a Crimson Guard. They usually come in Crimson Red. But there have been Crimson Guards in black before that they called the Shadow Guard. I think they called this guy the Twilight Guard. And he's got a very cool, like, soft goods half cape. He looks really cool in black. This is a very cool design. I like him a lot. I like his kind of purple accessories. It's a tough call for him because I've already had 2 different Crimson Guards be considered in previous years. But the black and the added accessories, like, I don't even know what this band, this kind of shoulder pad is on his arm, but it's really cool. I like the cape. So, yeah, I'll let him stick around for a little while. He's not an immediate elimination. Oops. And then this guy here, this is the Steel Core Commander, I think they call him. So we already have, like, the Steel Core Troopers. We got a male and a female Steel Core last year, I think it was. And they are a cool addition to the classified collection. And this guy is very cool. He is based on a vintage figure that had the gold helmet. And I like it. But it's not different enough from the previous Steel core figure that I have, and I did not have the gold-headed one as a kid, so I don't have the nostalgic ties to it or anything. So this guy, solid figure, but he's going to go. Okay, we still got a bunch more G.I. Joes over here. I'm just going to cut to the chase right now with Jinx. Jinx is like one of the female ninjas. I love this character. This figure is great. It's the best Jinx we've ever gotten. She has two alternate heads. One of them is unmasked. The other one is masked with a kind of a more traditional ninja mask. I love this figure so much. I am probably going to buy a second one just so I can display it with both heads in my collection. I haven't done so yet. But this figure here is guaranteed to go through. This is the first figure I've talked about in this video who's guaranteed to make it to the next quarter, quarter four. So she's a definite advancement. I love Jinx. All right. Doc is really great. I also really like Doc. Torch, the Dreadnought, he's really cool. We've got the Night Creeper here. Now, the Night Creeper I actually bought twice for the same reason with Jinx, is that he came with two alternate heads, so you can create two different looks for him. And he's got so many different weapons and different hands that you can make the one figure look pretty different by swapping out all the parts. So I actually put him up here twice because I've got this version, and then way over here, there's the other Night Creeper version who we'll get to later. So if one version of the Night Creeper was going to advance, it would be the other version. I just like that look better. This is a cool helmet and all, but yeah, he's going to go. Now this here is the Stinger driver. So he's basically a repaint of the previously released Cobra Trooper in the more well-known Cobra Blue. But yeah, this is based on a vintage figure, which again was just a gray repaint of the, whoops. Okay, I had to cut away for a second because my Night Creeper, I put him off to the side and he was falling over and knocking everybody else over, and now my Stinger driver was down. And yeah, this is always a risk when you set up this many action figures on a desk. You can see some of them have display stands, but a lot of them don't. And they can go down like dominoes and quickly make a mess of this whole video. So anyway, the Stinger driver, he's basically a gray version of a Cobra Trooper. I have lots of other Cobra Trooper figures that I have previously reviewed. It's a good figure. He's not great. He normally would not probably have much of a chance of advancing. However, he came packaged with a vehicle, and the vehicle really elevates this figure. So I didn't have room for all of my vehicles over here when I put all my figures together, but if we slide over here for a minute, these figures here are also in contention for this video. This is G.I. Joe Shockwave on his Night Force motorcycle. This is Wreckage on his Tiger Force ATV. And this is the Stinger Jeep. So you can see how massive that is. That is a big old Jeep with a missile launcher on the back. So this thing came with the Stinger driver. So when you consider that I lump that in with him as an accessory, that definitely probably allows him to stick around a little while longer for further consideration. When it comes to Torch and Doc, I like both of them too much, so I'm not going to address them right now. They're going to stick around. Here's the Cobra Commander that I mentioned. So he might not look like Cobra Commander because this is mutated Cobra Commander. We'll talk more about him later, but he's an awesome figure that I've been waiting a long time to get. We've got a couple of Slaughter's Marauders characters. So here is Spirit. So he is the Native American member of the G.I. Joe team. He's got his little bird sidekick here perched on his arm a little precariously. But anyway, I loved the first version of Spirit that we got. It made my best of the year list 2 years ago, I think it was. And this figure still holds up. And in a lot of ways, I like this version even better. I think they've done a better job with some of the paint detail. Like, for example, his headband. You can see all that little detail in the pattern. The original version just had like a solid red headband. The knife, there's like a little bird skull on the head of his knife, which is painted white. In the previous version, it was just solid brown knife. So they've improved the figure. So it's hard for me to eliminate this guy, but I feel I gave Spirit his due by putting on my best of the year list a couple years ago. A new paint job and a couple new paint apps is not enough for him to make the list again. So I'm going to eliminate Spirit. So here are the other Slaughter's Marauders characters, including Sergeant Slaughter himself, the leader of the team. So you can see that him and Lowlight here have kind of a cohesive color scheme with the brown, the green, and the blue. Spirit matched them as well. I have both these figures already in their kind of standard colors. Like Lowlight, who's usually kind of a night trooper. He usually wears black and gray. I think these guys look good in these colors, so I totally don't mind having to buy them a second time in the Marauders color scheme, but I don't really think they're necessarily improvements over the previous versions. I honestly can't recall if these guys made my best of the year lists in the previous versions. Lowlight definitely had a chance of doing so because he's a really solid figure. I don't care for Slaughter as much, but yeah, these are both nice figures, but they are both going to get eliminated. And we have a few more retro carded G.I. Joes. So, as was the case with Stalker and Cobra Commander earlier, they initially released these figures in boxes with kind of newer paint schemes, and then they went ahead and released them again on retro cards with retro paint jobs to more closely match their vintage toys from the 80s. Beachhead, I think, really needed to get redone. The previous version was a bit of a miss for me. They used a really kind of ugly yellowy green for his ski mask and his sweater, which I really didn't like. His vest did not resemble his vintage vest or anything like that. This guy's awesome. This Beachhead is way, way, way better than the previous version. I don't know if he's going to make it to the end, but I think he deserves further consideration. The Cobra Eel, on the other hand, this figure is also awesome. Oh, Beachhead's falling down. He's giving me trouble soon. There we go. Okay. The eel is awesome. I love the Cobra Frogman, but this figure is almost identical to the previous version. Literally, the only changes that I'm aware of is the previous version had a red little rope on the back of his harpoon gun, and he had a different logo on his backpack. I think those are the only two differences. They're so similar, in fact, I'm not even 100% sure I grabbed the right eel for this video. This might be the one that got released previously, and the new one has the red rope and the different logo. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. He's not going to advance. This is an awesome, awesome figure, but he already had his chance last year, and I honestly, I can't remember if he made it or not. I think he might have. But anyway, it's a cool figure, but this guy's going to go. And the last retro carded G.I. Joe is the Cobra Snow Serpent. I love the Snow Serpent. They gave us a really nice updated version, I think just last year. And that one did make my best of the year list. This one, I think, also has a shot. It's different enough. Like, the color scheme is pretty drastically different. This one is much more reminiscent to the 80s toy, and I loved that 80s Snow Serpent toy. So yeah, like Beachhead, I think he can stick around a little bit longer, and he might just make it through. So we haven't really talked about any Marvel Legends, so let's do that. But before we get to all these Marvel Legends, we've got Reptilax. He is another Masters of the Universe Origins character. He is super weird. He's got this green snake head on this kind of weird orange body. Anyway, I love him. He's weird. He's awesome. He's going to stick around. Leaning on him here is this Spider-Man figure. It is a great Spider-Man figure. Great colors, great sculpt. You know, he's got pinless joints and everything. It's a really nice figure, but I have so many Spider-Man figures. This guy just isn't different enough for me, so he's going to go as well. Okay, so I'm at that point in the video where I realize I'm running long. It happens every time. So let's try and speed things up a little bit here. In my last episode, I talked about my latest Marvel Legends figures. So I talked about all these figures and Captain Marvel and Iron Fist and Luke Cage. I talked about them in detail just in my last episode. So if you want to hear my thoughts on these guys, you can go find that episode. They're all good figures. None of these are bad figures, but out of this whole Shield pack, I think Sharon Carter, it's a beautiful sculpt, and it's just such an improvement over the previous Sharon Carter figure that I think I have to push her through. But these three fellas, so Nick Fury, Senior, Nick Fury Jr., and Dum Dum Dugan. Those guys are all gonna get eliminated. This Miss Marvel figure, aka Carol Danvers, aka Warbird, is also a very, very nice figure. Hasbro has come a long way with their female figures. The proportions and the sculpting and the paint, it's all so much better than what they were putting out a couple of years ago. I love this figure, so she's going to stick around a while as well. This is Death's Head. I talked about how much I love this character and this figure in my last episode. This will be the next figure that I say is guaranteed to advance. So Death's Head and Jinx are both a lock. This horse here, let's see, this is Night Stalker, I believe his name is. And he's a repaint of a previous release. It's fine, but it doesn't excite me very much. So yeah, this horse here, Night Stalker, he's going to go. Now I've got two big figures over here. Both of these figures I thought had a pretty good chance of advancing. This here is Space Godzilla from Super 7. It's part of their Godzilla Ultimates line. I have to move him delicately because he's got this big long tail that is likely to knock other toys down. I love the way these crystals look on him and everything. He's got a really cool head sculpt. I'm really pleased with this figure for the most part. And even though it's true to the character design, I find it really pronounced on the figure. I just can't get past this gunt. I complained about it in my review of this figure. My friend Brandon just messaged me on that video and said, how did you not come up with Space Guntzilla? That would be a perfect nickname for this figure. And it is. It's just really distracting. Not only from the front, but from the side. The way it's got that weird gap in between his belly and his... I don't know. Yeah, so this figure is really good. I don't know if there's a better Space Godzilla figure out there, but yeah, that's just too distracting. I don't think it's a figure of the year for me, so Space Godzilla is going to go. And when it comes to Darkseid, I don't know if I'm ready to eliminate him yet. I love the character of Darkseid, and this figure looks really good. Standing on my shelf, I think he looks great. I love this costume design. I love that head sculpt. I love the soft goods cape. It's just he feels really weird. He feels really cheap. His arms fall out. He was a disappointment from what I thought I was getting. So I don't know if I'm ready to eliminate him, but when I first pre-ordered this figure, I thought it was a shoo-in for my best of the year. Maybe not my absolute best, but I thought it would make my list for sure. But I'm not even sure he's going to survive this quarter. I'm going to come back to him. I forgot, I do have another Super 7 reaction figure here. This is a G.I. Joe Snake Eyes figure. I have him in the back here because I kept him on the blister card. I don't normally do that, but I really liked this card. But anyway, this figure here is just a repaint of a figure I already have a couple times over in different colors. So it doesn't bring anything new to the table, so that figure is going to go too. So we've almost taken a look at everybody at this point. Okay, Iron Fist. Cool character, love this figure. Huge improvement over the previous Iron Fist. But I think the competition is just too stiff. So Iron Fist is not going to make it. And neither is his pal, Power Man, also known as Luke Cage. This figure, it's a well-done figure and everything, but it's just, he's not a character that I particularly have a fondness for, so he's going to go. This Transformer here, this is Ferrak. I don't know much about this guy. He wasn't a character that was featured in cartoons and comic books, really. But he is a repaint of Cyclonus, who I thought was an awesome figure. I loved that Cyclonus figure from a couple of years ago. It almost made my best of the year list, but he got beat out by Galvatron, and I only felt like one big purple Transformer should advance that year. So here's his second chance to make it, and this color scheme is also very eye-catching. I like the gray and the black and the red. It's cool, but yeah, just the fact that it's essentially a repaint. Like, he does actually have a new face sculpt, but it's the Cyclonus figure repainted. I've had that Cyclonus for 2 years now, I think, maybe even 3. So it just, this mold doesn't feel particularly fresh. So I think I'm going to have to eliminate Ferric. Okay, so everybody that I've given a temporary pass to is over on this side. These are the ones we still haven't talked about. I don't know if there's any duds over here. I like all these guys. This here is Vipor. He's a new character, a new Snake Man from Masters of the Universe Origins. It's always cool to get new characters added to the line instead of just buying characters like Merman over and over again. I like his real metal chains, all that sort of stuff. So he's going to get a temporary stay of execution. This Cobra Commander I briefly touched on, but this is based on the animated G.I. Joe movie from the 80s when we learn that Cobra Commander came from a ancient race of like snake people, and then he got mutated into this multi-eyed creature. I love it, so he's going to stick around. This here is the Vulture from Spider-Man, based on the storyline where he turns himself young, and it is a really cool figure. I really like these animated Spider-Man figures. They remind me of my Toy Biz figures from the 90s. I think it was just in the last quarter I had Alistair Smythe almost make it because it was a really cool figure, even if it was a goofy character. I think Vulture has what it takes to stick around. He's very cool. All right, we've got a couple more Masters of the Universe. Well, let's address all three of these guys. So these are all from the 7-inch line, which is called Masterverse or New Eternia. I don't really collect this line because I'm mostly focusing on the Origins line that has Vipor and Reptilax. So that's more like the 5 and 5-inch line. So the 7 inches, I only buy the figures I really want. Merman, I had to buy because he's like one of my all-time favorite characters. This is a cool Merman. I like his kind of, well, I like and I don't like, to be honest, his eyes. They've got this weird glassiness to them. And it's unique, but it's also kind of weird. I don't know if it's necessarily cool. It's different. Otherwise, he's a pretty straightforward Merman. I think he's the best one we've gotten in the Masterverse line. I think he's the third one they've done. So this is the best one yet. But, you know, I still have other versions of Merman from like the Classics line that are better in my mind. So I don't know if he's going to stick around, but for now he will. This is Sorceress Tila. I think she looks great. So this is based on her look from the, was it Revelation or Revolution cartoon that was on Netflix. It's a really cool design. She's got the kind of sorceress or the kind of goddess like green skin and the snake motif. And then we've got Leech here. Now Leech is a character I really like, and this is a cool design for him. That's a little different from the other versions of Leech I have in my collection. I really don't want to let go of any of these guys. Here we have Blazing Godzilla. So this is a translucent orange Godzilla from Super 7. I was super excited to get this guy, even though it's just a repaint of a figure I already have in 2 different colors. But I think the translucent orange and the yellow look so good. Then I've got this Ghost Rider on his motorcycle. Now, I was a big fan of the 90s Dan Ketch version of Ghost Rider. And this is my first version of him since the 90s. It's very cool. The bike is very cool. I love the effects on the tires. What else? We've got Naugahyde back there from G.I. Joe. He's very cool. Ragman from McFarlane's DC Multiverse line. And finally, Straxus from Transformers. All right, so we've touched on everybody. I like all these figures, but there's way too many here. Not to mention these guys over here. So yeah, I'm going to start paring things down. Okay, I've done another reshuffle. Everybody's here, with the exception of the Stinger Jeep is just out of frame here. So maybe we'll address that first. As cool as that Jeep is, it definitely elevates this figure from where he would normally sit on this list. It really does come down to the figures. I'm a figure guy. If the Jeep didn't come with this dude, I would not have even bought this Jeep. Not that it isn't cool. It's just, it's too big. It's too expensive. I didn't really need it in my collection. So yeah, it's cool. But it really comes down to the figure. And the figure alone, I don't like it enough to make my best of the year list. So the Stinger Driver is going to go. So looking around at these figures here, it's painful to let anybody go. But I think the next one to go is going to be Retro Beachhead. This is such a good figure, but I did already have a classified Beachhead from a couple of years ago. So even though it's a huge improvement, it's not a new character. So it's just obviously a little less exciting to get, you know, a redo of a character I already had. And when I was a kid, my brother Doug had Beachhead, not me. So I don't have quite the attachment to him as I do for characters like Jinx and Doc and Tripwire, you know, characters that I had when I was a kid. So yeah, Beachhead's gonna go. I keep swinging past this Leonardo. He's really fun. Plus he's different. Like I don't want a list that's all G.I. Joes. If that's the way it shakes out, so be it. But, you know, when I see somebody here that stands out and feels a little different, you know, it's kind of nice to have some variety on your list. And yeah, seeing as he's my only Ninja Turtle from this quarter, and he's a good one, I don't know if I'm ready to get rid of him. Although I think I am ready to pull the trigger on the reaction figure Godzilla. This guy's cool. I appreciate what they did here, but not only is he a reaction figure with a relatively simple sculpt and limited articulation, but he also has a very limited paint job, or no paint job at all. So yeah, he's cool, but he's gonna go. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned yet is these guys here. So these were a couple of accessories that I had off to the side. I wouldn't consider these guys action figures in their own right, but this here is mutated Cobra Commander when he's further mutated. So first he starts out as a man, and then he slowly starts to evolve into a snake, and then he ends up like this. So this is an accessory that came packaged with this figure, and it's an awesome accessory. So that figure already had a pretty good chance of advancing, but I think this accessory really brings them forward. Now here we have a couple of animals. The warthog is named Pork Belly, and he's a really cool figure in his own right. He's got an articulated jaw, articulated legs in multiple spots. And then he also comes with this little monkey with an eye patch. Now, they're really cool. Now, they are accessories that came with Nagahide, who we haven't really spoken about too much. He's hiding back there. Why don't I get Nagahide out here so we can talk about him in a little bit more detail. So here is Nagahide. He is one of the Dreadnoks. I had the original Nagahide figure when I was a kid. Really liked him. I really liked that he came with a warthog, but back then it was just a solid piece of plastic with no articulation. The warthog is a huge improvement. The monkey is a nice new addition. There was no monkey on the original 80s Nagahide figure. And this Nagahide has a lot to like about it, but I think the face sculpt, he looks dumb to me. We talked about this in my video where me and Chad reviewed this figure. I think he's supposed to be scowling, but it looks like he has just a really bad underbite. And the fact that his eyes don't look angry, it doesn't look like a scowl. He just looks kind of dumb. So even though there's a lot to like here, I think that does bring the figure down a few notches. And for that reason, Nagahide and Pork Belly and the monkey are going to go. It's crazy to me that I still have 3 vehicles here. Of all these vehicles, it's hard to say which one's got the best chance. But sadly, I think Shockwave on his Night Force motorcycle has the least chance. So I think I'm going to send him packing right now. The motorcycle, you know, it's cool, but it's a repaint of a mold we've already got twice before. And Shockwave, even though he is like my favorite G.I. Joe from when I was a kid, I loved my original Shockwave figure. I already have a figure of Shockwave in his more well-known blue SWAT outfit. This was the Night Force repaint, which I never had as a kid, and I don't think it looks as good or as interesting as his blue SWAT with the digital camo. That figure made my best of the year list a year or 2 ago. So yeah, I love Shockwave, but this figure is just not as good as the previous version, so it's going to go. Okay, some more tough cuts have to come here. You know what? I've got 3 Masters of the Universe Origins figures here. And I think if any of them was going to advance, Reptilax is probably got the best chance. I don't know why. I think Vipor has a much more consistent look, and he's got those metal chains. But I don't know, there's just something so goofy and awesome about Reptilex that I think he's going to outlast Vipor. So Vipor is going to go. Stratos, he's still going to stick around for another second, I think. Who else we got? Who else? This Twilight Trooper. Again, I love the Crimson Guard. The red is the look that he's most known for. But this looks really good. And it's not just a black Crimson Guard like we've gotten in the past. I think the addition of the purple highlights and the cape really elevate this guy. So I like him a lot. Tripwire. I think I'm going to have to let Tripwire go. I really like this figure. I really like this character. But even when the first version of Tripwire came out, I just thought the head sculpt looked a little too thin to remind me of the vintage figure. And that's not even necessarily a bad thing. The vintage figure didn't have a whole lot of detail in the head sculpt. This one here, his helmet is actually removable. He's got a lot more personality than the vintage figure, but I don't know. It's because it doesn't look like the same guy as my vintage figure, I guess, is maybe why he's going to go, but he's a really solid figure. I like this guy a lot. All right, I just did a quick count. I am still at 25 figures. I don't have a set number that I need to whittle this down to, but definitely under 20. I prefer to come in around 15. So I still need to eliminate about 10 of these figures. So time to get tough. Okay, I've hauled some guys from the back to talk about them up front. So Leech from Masters of the Universe, we already talked about him. It's a really good figure. It is. But I still think I prefer my Classics version. So if this isn't the best version of the figure to date, I think that's reason enough to send him packing. Torch. This is the best version of Torch to date by far. It's a really cool figure. I love the new details of like the flame tattoos on his forearms. The little skull on his blowtorch is really cool. I like the texture in his jeans even. Like there's a lot to like about this figure. I've always liked the original Dreadnoks. The thing is, when I was a kid, I had Buzzer and Ripper, and my brother Doug had Torch. So Torch is kind of the one I have the least attachment to. I never played with this guy when I was a kid. And neither Buzzer or Ripper made my best of the year list when they came out. So I just don't see Torch making it either. It's a solid figure of a solid character, but this kind of comes down to personal attachment. So I could see him making somebody else's best of list, but I think for me, I'm going to have to let him go. And then I'm going to shimmy over here to Ragman. I like this guy a lot too. The fact that he's still here speaks to that. I love his cloth cape. It's a very simple design. He's almost just a plain green figure with just some of these sloppy patches painted on the front of him. There's no patches painted on the back, which does feel kind of cheap and lazy. Like, I feel they could have painted some patches on the back of him too. He is really cool. But is he cool enough? I don't think so. So I think I'm going to have to let Ragman go too. And then we've got the Night Creeper. We already eliminated the other version of him with the other head. This is the head I prefer. This is the one that I know better. It's a really cool figure. I love the idea of like kind of this purple ninja. I like the head design and everything. But I didn't have this guy when I was a kid. He came out the year after I stopped collecting G.I. Joe. So yeah, again, he just doesn't have the same ties as somebody like Doc or Jinx. So yeah, it's tough. I think, how many Cobra Troopers do I have left? So it's down to Night Creeper, the Twilight Guard, and the Snow Serpent. And they're all really cool. But yeah, I think I'm going to let the Night Creeper go. Now, I'm a little torn when it comes to wreckage here. The original character is a repaint of the Cobra Saboteur Firefly, and that's exactly what we get here. This figure is just a repaint of Firefly. It's a little hard to tell with his helmet on, but that pops off. And then you can see he's just got that masked head there. He looks pretty cool. I really like the idea of this character. Like, Firefly's just got such a great design, and repainting him into a G.I. Joe member, it works for me. And the ATV is a really fun vehicle. I think it was just the last quarter that I got the original version of this, which is called the Cobra Ferret, and it was in blue. And I was really tempted to advance that figure because I loved the Ferret so much. It's a fun vehicle. I love the little shocks on it. But the figure that came with the Ferret wasn't as strong. It was a female Cobra Trooper. This one here, I think, is maybe a good enough combination to stick around. I like the tiger paint job of the Ferret. It's a little more interesting than even the Cobra Blue one. And yeah, this Firefly repaint just really works well. So yeah, I think I was on the fence about eliminating this guy, but I think he might have what it takes to stick around. All right, I'm going to make some tough cuts. Again, I like the diversity of keeping Leonardo around, but it's just too simple of a figure. Like, I don't really like the articulation on him. I think you can sort of see on his elbows, or sorry, on his shoulders, how they spin around, kind of weird. He doesn't really have elbow articulation. He's just a kind of simple figure. Like, this guy only cost like $14. I think he was probably the cheapest figure that was on this table here tonight. So, you know, he's just kind of a regular mass retail figure compared to a lot of these collector lines. And though he's fun, I don't think he's going to be a toy of the year for me. So Leonardo is going to go. And it pains me to get rid of this guy, but I think Darkseid has to go. Like, I think just visually, when you see my list here, like, he stands out. He's so big. He seems like he should be in my best of the year list. But he just is, he feels really cheap. His whole torso feels hollow. His arms fall out of their sockets. So for those reasons, you know, it just really sucks when you're disappointed by a figure you were looking forward to. So even though I'm not saying it's a bad figure per se, I just don't see how I could put it on my best of the year list. So yeah, he's going to go. Okay, things are getting sparse. We're getting there. We're getting there. I've barely talked about Straxus, so maybe I'll bring him out here. And I'll tell you why he's still around for me, is that this is a character that first appeared in the Transformers comic book from Marvel back in the 80s. And this was one of those characters that appeared in the comic book, but he wasn't based on an existing toy. You know, every now and again, the writers of the Marvel comic books would have to create original characters to fill out their storylines. Maybe they needed a character to die, and they couldn't kill one of Hasbro's main characters that they wanted kids to buy toys of. So they would create original characters sometimes to fill those positions in the stories. And Straxus was one of those characters. In the Marvel comic book, they were set on Earth, but then we went back to Cybertron for the first time in issue like 17, and this guy had become the new kind of ruthless tyrant on Cybertron in Megatron's place. And I thought it was such a cool story. I loved the look of this guy, and I really wanted a toy of him, and it was hard for me to understand as a kid why there wasn't a toy of him. And it's taken this long to really get a comic accurate toy of this guy. So I think this is a really cool toy. I'm really pleased with him. But after waiting 40 years essentially for this figure, I still think they could have done things a little bit better. Like, his face seems a little bit off. Now, to be fair, the designs in the comic book changed from panel to panel, so there isn't really a consistent look to say that this doesn't 100% match, but it doesn't quite look how I'd want it to look. The design is a little plain in places. Like, I feel he could have used a little bit more color, a little bit more sculpted detail perhaps, and he's got some bad kibble, especially on the back of his arms. I hate these big gray things that are stuck on the bottom of his arm. You know, there's nowhere to tuck that away. Excess kibble can really ruin a Transformer. So I was really excited to get this character. I'm very happy I have him, but there's a little too much going on here, and also not enough going on in other places. So I'm a little surprised to have to eliminate him, but I think I'm going to have to do it. All right, I'm going to put my locks over here in the corner. So I know I already said Death's Head and Jinx were locks. I think Blazing Godzilla is a lock for me too. Now, he is a figure that I already have in 2 other colors, and in fact, he made my best of the year list. I think it was last year or the year before. in his more classic Godzilla gray colors. And it was high up on my list. I think it was in like my top 2 or 3. And because I really love this base figure, and this translucent orange just really, really works for me. So oftentimes I eliminate figures when they're repaints of figures that I already have in my collection because the newness factor isn't there. Kind of like what I said with Beachhead and stuff. But this guy, he has a newness factor. That translucent orange really brings this figure to life in a whole new way. And I really love it. That's why some of these other guys are still around too, like the Snow Serpent and the Twilight Guard. They're basically repaints of figures I already have with some additional tweaks. But yeah, the paint jobs really changed them up. Here's another kind of maybe surprising elimination, but I think we're going to say goodbye to Ghost Rider. He's a cool figure, and the bike is really cool. The thing is, I already have a Ghost Rider Marvel Legend that looks very similar to this. The other figure I have is supposed to be Johnny Blaze, the original Ghost Rider, who normally wears a blue jumpsuit and doesn't have chains. But every time a Ghost Rider comic comes out now, they always tend to make it star Johnny Blaze, but they've kind of stolen Danny Ketch's look from the 90s. Same as in the live-action movies with Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage basically wore this outfit and had like this bike, and yet he was supposed to be Johnny Blaze. And so for that reason, I already have a Ghost Rider in a black outfit with chains, and it's very similar to this one, even though it's supposed to be Johnny Blaze. I think if the Johnny Blaze figure had looked more like it was supposed to, this guy would feel a little fresher to me. But the fact that it kind of feels almost like a re-release of a figure I already have, it kind of brings the newness factor down on him. Even though I love the bike. The bike is super, super cool. The bike alone is not enough to push this figure through. So he's going to go. All right, for the sake of time, I'm just going to go ahead and say this Cobra Commander is a lock too. It's just such an original idea. And again, something I've been waiting so long for. I wanted this figure when I was a kid, but it didn't exist until now. Plus he comes with the little sneaky sidekick. So yeah, that's a lock. Merman, I think I'm hanging on to you for the wrong reasons. This figure alone isn't necessarily a top 10 figure for me. I'm kind of holding on to him for nostalgic reasons. I hate eliminating a merman, and I've already eliminated one merman today. You know what? Vulture, I'm going to say Vulture's a lock. I think this sculpt turned out really successfully. I like it a lot. It might be a little bit of newness bias because he's one of the newest figures that I have on this table here, but he's pretty cool. So let's put him over there. Anybody else I want to commit to? Sharon Carter. She's a lock. That's a beautifully sculpted figure. I'm going to go ahead and say Gears. I know maybe there's nothing particularly special about him, but I loved this guy when I was a kid. He was my favorite Autobot Transformer, believe it or not. And the toy I had as a kid was much simpler than this one. This is a huge step up compared to the one I had as a kid. It's fully articulated where the other one barely moved at all. And it's a character that's been a really long time coming. I've wanted a nice articulated version of Gears for so long that I ended up buying a couple of third-party versions of him. And I think that's the only reason I didn't immediately push this guy through, is because some of those third-party versions are quite nice. So it kind of lessened my need to get this figure from Hasbro. But I don't know, Hasbro's is really nice. And there's something about being officially licensed that just makes it feel more like Gears than the kind of knockoff versions I have. It's a great figure. It's a great character. So yeah, I'm going to say Gears is a lock. So I've got 3 G.I. Joes here. Or 4. I guess there's 4 G.I. Joes left. I'm surprised a little bit. Not so much that I'm going to let him go. I didn't really have a whole lot of attachment to this guy going in. He just looks cool. You know, he's a black Cobra Trooper. It's a cool design. But other than that, there's no real nostalgic connection or anything. It's a nice figure, but I already have Crimson Guard a couple of times over. But Doc, this one is kind of surprising me, because Doc is one of the characters I most wanted in Classified. and they did a nice job with him. This is a pretty nice figure, but one thing that kind of bothers me is the helmet. It's very hard to get the helmet and the sunglasses on at the same time. When you get the helmet on, the sunglasses start getting a little wonky. And the helmet is different than the one on the retro figure. It's got this chin strap, which is partly what makes it so difficult to put on with the glasses. I think if he didn't have that helmet, he could have been better. Maybe if the glasses were actually attached to his head, or at least had little pegs so they would stay in place better, I'd like it more. Also, I find all this stuff on his chest is a little busy. I think they maybe went overboard with all these little removable pouches and stuff, because they tend to fall off. You can sort of see how there's some gaps between the pouches and his vest. So it's really, really good, but I'm kind of hoping that they do a retro carded version of him that's a little bit more faithful to the original design in the 80s, and in which case maybe he'll have another shot at my best of the year. But for now, I think this doc is going to go. So these are the figures that were still up for debate. But I just did a count, and I think in total I have 15 figures here now. So these ones here are definitely locks, and I think these guys here could all advance, but I don't want to get lazy. If there's somebody here that shouldn't go through, I should probably eliminate them. I like them all. I wouldn't have bought these figures if I didn't like them, so it's not like there's any easy eliminations here. Like, I think Miss Marvel probably should be a lock. That's a really great figure. The Snow Serpent, it's a little tempting to get rid of him just because I've already had a Snow Serpent from a year or two ago. But this guy, he just looks really, really good in those 80s colors. Stratos, again, it's just such a good job on Stratos. Gorgo, I think it's a little goofy looking, almost, the proportions. I think the articulation could have been better. But again, just the fact that this character is so unlikely to have been made, and that it was made by a small little company, I think. Plus you get little baby Gorgo. Wow, how cool is that? I know we haven't talked a whole lot about the Sorceress Tila, but she's really cool in this snake pattern. I love this big train she has on the back of her cowl type of thing here, or her skirt piece. So you can see it's like soft goods snake skin. It's kind of flipped up there, but there you go. So that's really cool. I just really like that design. I think they did a really nice job on the sculpt. She's got a pretty face. And Merman. I'm really wondering about Merman. There have been better Mermen than this. I really don't think he's going to make it to the end of the year, but I think I should push him through for this quarter. I don't think there's anybody here that doesn't deserve to go ahead. I think these are all pretty solid figures. So let's just go ahead and say that this is my top 15 of quarter 3. So here we go. My top 15. One final recap. We've got Blazing Godzilla, Mutated Cobra Commander, Gears from Transformers, Jinx from G.I. Joe, Marvel Legends Death's Head, Marvel Legends Vulture, Sharon Carter, and Captain Marvel. Then we've got Masters of the Universe Origins Reptilax and Stratos. Then we've got G.I. Joe Wreckage on his Tiger Force ATV. We've got Merman and Sorceress Tila from Masterverse, G.I. Joe Classified Snow Serpent, and Agra and Gorgo. So yeah, there you go. Okay, so we have went through all my action figure purchases from quarter 3 of 2024, and we have got down to just the best of the best. Now, those figures will be in contention for the best of the year in December. So make sure you come back for that video and for all the videos that I'm going to shoot before then, because there'll be lots of videos to shoot in the next 3 months. So yeah, be sure to come back for all that stuff. Please, if you liked this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. That's also very helpful. And please leave me comments below. Do you agree with my selections? Is there anything that you would have kept around that I didn't? Do you think I'm nuts for keeping one of these figures around? I don't know. I love hearing all your guys' thoughts on this stuff. So please feel free to do that below. It helps out the channel when I get engagement like that. So yeah, do all that stuff. And I will see you soon for another video. Until then, ciao.